Good
Sorry about
morning.
that, Kristen. I
No, it's okay.
I thought I was coming from you, and then I'm still learning all this stuff. Usually someone else does Zoom for me.
No, it's okay. Well, and I know you had talked to Haley, so I didn't know if Haley
Yeah, no,
was.
I don't know if she's part of it because I think I'm supposed to record it also for the board meeting too. So
Yep. No, that sounds great. And then I don't know, I sent it to Haley. I don't know if you saw, when I logged in, it said meeting with Dr. Sadorf for ARSA or the Rural School Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Dr. Sadorf will be with you shortly.
okay, we need to fix that. Yeah, I thought I made the changes on Zoom because Melissa gave me the account. And
Okay.
I did, but maybe I didn't change the profile and I need to, I'll go in and check afterwards and see if I changed the profile.
Okay. And I see Carolyn's in here.
Yep.
But I would probably just wait to let everybody else in like
Okay.
1 minute too. Just so we don't have to start the recording too early.
I think
Um,
it's already started based on what
okay.
and I don't know if end is for the recording or
Yeah, I would wait to start it.
okay, I got it on. I got
That's okay.
There we go.
And then before we jump in to the interview with Dr. Wyman, I'd love to give everyone a moment to introduce themselves, telling us what district you're representing today, your name, um, any information that you'd like to share. And I'll go through my screen order, so I'll call on you so we don't have to wait for those that for who is going to speak next, and then we'll go ahead and go into the interview with Dr. Wyman. I'll start. My name's Kristen Turner. I'm the superintendent for the Paloma Elementary School District. This is my 14th year as superintendent here. I'm also the past president for the Arizona Rural Schools Association and still on the executive board. Um, and next, I'll call on Dr. Cheryl Paul.
Thank you, Cheryl. So Cheryl Paul, retired superintendent from Sackatone Elementary School District. So the rural space has a near and dear place in my heart. And currently I'm blessed to serve going into year 4 at Grand Canyon University. Welcome, Greg.
Great. Next, Dr. Wanamaker.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Andy Wanamaker. I am the superintendent at Aguila Elementary School District in Northwest Maricopa County. I'm also a regional rep for ARSA. I've been in this district for 23 years now. This is my 11th as the superintendent.
Welcome. Dan Erickson.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Dan Erickson from Sonoyta Elementary School District. This is my second year as the superintendent in Sonoyta, my 5th year as a superintendent overall.
Welcome. Carolyn Stewart.
Good morning, Carolyn Stewart, Superintendent Bullhead City School District. My 7th year in this position. I've been in the district since 1989. Was a principal for a long time, and then did retire for a couple of years before I came back. Welcome, Greg.
And welcome back. Next I have AJ Taylor.
AJ Taylor, I'm in my 6th year at Safford Schools as superintendent, and welcome, Greg.
Welcome. And then next on my screen, I have B. Freet.
That's me. My name is Brett. Thank you so much. Sorry, I should fix that. Be free. Okay. I am with the trust in Lost Control, and I became more aware of ARSA. We were in Flagstaff for your annual conference, and it was just amazing. And so we continue to try to increase our reach to rural schools, especially. So I wanted to be a part of this meeting and welcome to the new president.
Thank you. Next I have Amy Castellanos.
Good morning. My name is Amy Castellanos. I'm an educational leadership consultant and from Mojave Valley, Arizona.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Next, Brad Sale.
Hey, good morning. Brad Thill, Superintendent of Parker Unified School District. I've been in the district since 1998 and seventh year as superintendent.
Welcome. Jennifer Walton.
Good morning. I am the superintendent of Siloam Elementary School. This is my second year as administrator. I'm in my 16th year in education. And welcome, Dr. Wyman.
Next, Stephanie Miller.
The video is kind of bad here. So hi, I'm Stephanie Miller, Congress Elementary School, 15th year as the superintendent, and welcome, Dr. Wyman.
Next, I have Jessica Howe.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I had audio issues yesterday. Anyhow, my name is Jessica Howe. I am the director of My Future AZ with Pipeline Connects. We are a career exploration and inspiration tool offered to schools across Arizona at no cost. Had the privilege to present at the Rural Schools Association conference in the fall. So excited to connect with Dr. Wyman and with all of you, and congratulations.
Thank you. Next, I have Shanna Johnson.
Hello, I'm Shanna Johnson, superintendent at Mohawk Valley School in East Yuma County. This is year 12 of trying to, do the principal, superintendent, and all the things that we do, but fun stuff.
Welcome. Thank you. Next, I have Lisa Jameson.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with the camera. I think it's my 11th year. I think Shannon and I started the same time, but I retired and now I've come back and I'm at Welton Elementary School District.
Welcome back again.
Thank
Next, I have Renee Montano.
Hi, friends. I am at Picacho Elementary School District. We're a one schoolhouse school district. We're introducing ourselves, Christy, right? That's all I'm
Yes,
doing.
correct.
And this is my second year here. This is my 33rd year in the business. I've been in administration since '08. From anywhere to Tucson Unified School District in Tucson, Flowing Wells Unified School District, and Casa Grande Union High School District.
Welcome, Renee. Steve Yoder.
Hi, Steve Yoder. I'm the superintendent at Sentinel. This is my second year there, my 15th as a administrator. So nice to see everybody. Congratulations, Greg.
Thank you. I have Jen. We will go past Jen. And then Peter, did I have you already? I think my order changed up.
No, I just jumped in. I was late. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. Please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're at. And
absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody, or morning. My name is Peter Dwyer. I'm superintendent for Red Rock Elementary.
Welcome. Is there anyone on the call that I missed? All right, wonderful. So at this time then, I want to say just thank you for introducing yourselves. Thank you for joining us today. It is wonderful to have such a great group of educational leaders on this call. And next, although he may need no introduction, I am very pleased to introduce you to the new executive director of the Arizona Rural Schools Association. Dr. Greg Wyman is an accomplished Arizona educational leader with more than 30 years of service as a superintendent, associate superintendent, principal, and teacher, known for building collaborative cultures, driving continuous improvement, and implementing innovative district-wide initiatives. Throughout his 22 years as a superintendent, including multiple rural districts, he has led transformative strategic planning efforts and has overseen more than 150 million in successful capital and sustainability projects. A longtime ARSA member and advocate for rural education, Dr. Wyman has been recognized nationally and statewide for his leadership in technology, organizational development, and community partnerships. He currently serves on several boards, including Modern Teacher and the Horace Mann League, and remains committed to strengthening rural schools through visionary leadership, strong relationships, and a deep belief in the potential of every student and community. So please welcome Dr. Greg Wyman.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate it very much. That reading just means I've been in a long time and you have a lot of stuff to write.
Hey, we're so excited to have you here today, and I am going to go ahead and just get started and let you speak a little bit about yourself. So can you share with everyone a little bit about your journey in education and what experiences shaped your perspective on serving rural schools?
Sure. This is year 40 for me. And I started out as a teacher up at actually CDO. I saw there's a few Flowing Well alum, in the room. So we won't get into that discussion at this point in time. But Canyon Delora, I was a teacher for about seven and a half years. Then moved into administration. My path to move up into the administration, I left CDO and actually went down to Patagonia. So I was at Patagonia for the years start to blend, but a couple years as principal K-12. Then I moved up to Snowflake, and in Snowflake I started out first year as the high school principal, and then I got my first superintendency, and I was there for another 5 years, I believe. Moved family down to the valley and was the superintendent at AJ for 4 years at Apache Junction, and then became an assistant super at Tempe Union for I think 4 or 5 years. Became superintendent at Payson because I wanted to get back into seats. I was at Payson for 5 years, and then I've been down here at Combs. This is year number 7. I think from the rural perspective, I know you have another question on down the road that I'll go into a little bit more, but growing up as a kid, I've spent a lot of time in rural schools, but then also in my career path has put me in rural schools. And even to the point of, if you're in Patagonia, some of you guys that are running the 120 kid count, and what do we do with the small adjustment weight? We were all over that as a district there, given our size and having the Union High School District and the elementary district together. Snowflake and Payson, slightly bigger, but not a ton. And my time in those two districts there were probably in the 2,400 to 2,500 kid range. When I was at AJ, it was 6,000, and Tempe Union was 10,000. So I have a broad brush of experiences. But I've always told people when they've asked like for a career path, probably the thing that has helped me out the most is that I was a superintendent, or excuse me, I was an administrator in a rural school and a small rural school, and then moved up to Snowflake, which wasn't much bigger. And you were forced to learn everything. If you're in a large district, you can very easily get pigeonholed into being the curriculum person or the facilities person, and you don't get that breadth of knowledge. And probably what's helped me more than anything else in my career is I've had my hands into everything, which has allowed me to be able to address any number of issues, just because I've had working experience with how you deal it. So I think when you're a rural school administrator, there's a real benefit to that understanding of the entire system and how do you fix problems at the entire system level. And that's something that not everybody experiences. It tires us out, but in the long run, it's going to be very beneficial to helping make sure that you can deal with a little bit of everything.
I think there are several people on this call who understand and know exactly what you're speaking about. So you are amongst good company. What do you see as the biggest strengths of Arizona rural schools, and how can ARSA build on them?
Business, and so the strength of ARSA is
Greg, can you start again? Your audio cut out a little bit.
as an educator, we're in the business of people. And so when we talk about what's the strength of ARSA, it's the people. It's the people that are running the schools. It's, we can get down to the teacher level, but, the bus drivers, but it's leadership, and leadership matters. And leadership matters most when times are most difficult. And I think we forget that at times. And so our strength is in our numbers and the basis of who we are. We're all unique. I know Melissa used to say all the time, I mean, what you're dealing with and what you may have in Mojave is a little bit different than if you're in Graham. It's a little bit different if you're over on Yuma on the river, or if you're, up in the White Mountains. So there's a difference to us, but there's the sameness to us. And I think that's our power. When we sit and communicate, looking at the numbers, depends on how you want to qualify what is a rural school or a rural district. But there's approximately 170. If you throw in some of the JTEDs, you're probably in the 175, 180 range out of 230, 235 districts. And so when you look at that, that represents 70, 75% of all school districts in Arizona are technically rural school districts. Now, we may only have 20% of the number of kids, but still that geographical area makes a difference. 14 of the 30 legislative districts touch rural schools. And so when you sit and see that and you say, okay, so you're almost at a majority in the legislature. And so our ability to come together as a collective group is what's going to be our power. And how do we work together within our uniqueness to advocate for each other and for the collective whole? And because we're used to doing so many different things, I think there's naturally the ability of people to do that because you're forced to do that. I learned very early, and I use this example all the time. I was at Snowflake. We had 2,800 kids, and probably the one person that helped me out as much as anybody was Deb Duvall, who was running Mesa at the time, and Mesa was running 74, 75,000. But there was that communication that says, yes, I'm different than you, but I value you and I'll work with you and I'll help you in any way I can. And I think as we look at ourselves, whether you're running at 4,000 or 5,000 kids, or you're running at 200 kids, how do we come together to help each other out? How do we create that voice and amplify that voice for who we are and what our needs are in a setting that it's very hard to get your voice heard nowadays. The charter schools run about 20%. Okay, so who's got a louder voice right now? Do we have a lot of voice, or the charter schools have a lot of voice? Well, the charter schools got some backing that we don't have right now. So how do we come together and collectively have that voice that speaks to what we need for our kids, for our communities, for our staffs? And how are we unique and how are we different? But how are we the same? And I think that's our power, but that's our greatest challenge at the same time, is can we come together collectively and speak as one voice? And when you put 170 names on a letter to the legislature, that has more power than one name on a letter to legislature. When you're talking to 14 out of 30 senators, and you all have the same common issue, that's our power. So the uniqueness of ARSA is the people. The strength of ARSA is the people. The collective power of ARSA is the people. And I think that's the piece that we can never forget, despite the fact that we're spread across the entire state. And sometimes it's hard to get from one corner to the next. But that's really who we're about, and why we can be as powerful as we can be.
Thank you. So this year, as you are in your first year of the executive directorship of the Arizona Rural Schools Association, what are going to be your top priorities?
Number one, the transition from Melissa and Henry helping out, taking over doing an outstanding job of the conference. I still think there's a piece that says what's going to be our membership. Has everybody signed up? Was there some confusion and people not signed up? So what's the membership of all rural schools? And so I'll be reaching out over the next couple months. I am retiring in June, but until June, I'm doing two jobs. I told my wife I was going to retire, and now I have two jobs. She asked me how that worked for me. So I failed retirement before I even started. But so over the next, as I do other things, but over the next couple of months, we want to reach out and make sure that everybody's all in. I understand budgets are tight, and we need to have that conversation. But again, having all of our voices together is probably the biggest thing that we want to do. Continue to build our business partnerships and make sure we're working with them. We have some potential positives on down the road that I can speak to in a little bit, that I think we want to take a look at. And so how do we build off of those potential positives between our partnerships between business and all of our schools? And I think that's the main thing. There's going to be some stuff with legislation. There's going to be some other connecting points that take place. But until we all get in the room together, until we're all rowing in the same direction, so to speak, that's the most critical thing. The other stuff will come and there'll be some changes, but to me, that's what we need to do more than anything else is solidify who we are and what we're all about. And then we'll start to look at some things as we move into the next year with what do we do some strategic planning to figure out some things of what's the direction we want to go in. How do we deal with legislature, and what do we do with the legislature? We're not giving up on this year's session by any stretch of the imagination. We're doing a lot of work there, but we might solidify what we're doing with that. So that's probably the biggest focus, I think, and then kind of ground ourselves again so we can continue to grow.
Thank you. How do you plan to strengthen the voice of rural districts at the state level?
I think when we look to speak and how do we amplify, there's some amplify the voice. I think there's a number of different strategies. Again, I talked to the number of names on a letter. Several years back when we were working on the AEL issue, we went ahead and put everybody's name of every superintendent that agreed to be on the letter. And then we sent it to the governor and we sent it to all the legislators. And I've had more comments because I ended up sending out the letter, although a bunch of us were working on it, about that was an eye opener for the legislature because it was that collective voice. And so I think when we speak, we have to speak more on a collective voice. But I think the other piece that we have to do is tell our story. And how do you tell that story? And that story has to go a number of different ways. Many of us in the smaller communities may have a local paper that you can respond to. And some of the larger communities, I mean, if you read the Arizona Republic, there's no more local editorials. When you read it, you're reading the USA Today for the op-eds. And then when you get into, and so I write on Substack. And why do I write on Substack and why do I bring that up? Because that's a different avenue to get your voice heard. So we can't just go traditional. Yes, we got to put it on LinkedIn. Yes, we have to put it on X or Blue Sky or whatever. But it's also about how do we get the voice out speaking for who we are and what we're about? How do we tell our story? And I think more organically, when you tell your story, it resonates. And so I've talked with some board members, and it's just a rough idea. So I won't go into a ton of information just yet. But the idea would be, how do we promote the voice of rural Arizona schools? And when I talk about promote the voice, we have to promote the voice of our kids. We have to promote the voice of our teachers, and we have to promote the voice of our leaders. And what you have to do anymore, I think, is provide that messaging on a consistent basis, whether it's every week, every couple of weeks, and a consistent pattern so people get used to seeing it. And then probably more importantly, that we probably need to do a better job of it, then we have to get our networks to take and share that information and join. Because the power of if we look at the school choice movement, the power is in the collective size of their voice and the number of people that are there. And so as we speak to our voice, because we're so stretched, we have to go ahead and make sure that our voice is pushed out across all corners. And I hate the notion of it's all just clickbait and all that stuff, but that's the reality of what we work in. So are we going to fight it? or do we use it to our advantage? And I can tell you, just in watching stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook, the stories that are out there in our schools are phenomenal. The kids are phenomenal. I've been in enough districts in my career. Kids are kids are kids. Teachers are teachers are teachers, and they're amazing no matter where you're at. But do we tell that story? We also have to have those that are willing to push back on some of the false narratives that are out there about our school system. And I think that's a piece that we have to really do. So it's a case of working with the legislature collectively in a single voice, but also just telling our story through a lot of different mediums. And quite frankly, you writing in your natural tone, selling what you're selling, tells the story better than anybody else. And your kids writing, the reason I started Substack for a little bit of a bird walk is I read an article about an administrator up in Washington, state of Washington, and I can't remember where. He went to the last Eras Tour Taylor Swift concert. And he proceeded to take the concert and leadership strategies and mirror the two in a fabulous article. And it struck me at that point in time is we all write in many ways for a living. And so our ability to tell our stories, and if you've gotten your master's or your doctorate, you've had to write. And so we have such creative people out there that can do such a phenomenal job telling the story, but have we really told the story? And so that's a way that I think we need to really amplify our voices, again, not just legislatively, but with the change in social media and the change in the current setup for news media. If we don't tell our story doesn't get told. And so our ability to tell our story, I don't care how small you may think it is, there are 1,000 stories out there, 1,000,000 stories out there that just show what fantastic things are happening in all of our schools. And we take it for granted. We take it for granted when our kids do a blood drive. We take it for granted when we collect food for Thanksgiving and we give it to families. We take it for granted, all these little positive things. But if we don't tell that, then nobody hears it. And then they can't even celebrate what we're doing. So we have to find a way to break into that niche and really elevate that conversation. So I hope to do some things that will end up doing that.
That sounds great. That one's given me some ideas that I'd like to talk to you about later. But our next question is, are there upcoming initiatives or partnerships you're particularly excited about?
Since I'm still a little new in the game, obviously I just talked about that, voices of rural schools or voices from rural schools. So we haven't fleshed that out. I think that's one that we need to take a look at. I think when we look at business partnerships and expanding the business partnerships, I think one of the things we have to look at is non-traditional. We have some great business partners and they are so supportive, but are there ways to help them out too? And so as an example, I don't know how many in the state, but there's Safeways all over the state. So Safeways are supporting how many of our schools? I know when I was in Payson, they did a whole bunch of work with us through their foundation and supported our schools. And so is there a way to get them to support ARSA? I talked to Paul Ty yesterday from ASA, and he was commenting on the South Dakota executive director for their superintendents. And their largest supporter is actually a car dealer because everybody drives a car. And so it just got me to thinking of how do we take the great partners we have right now and continue to elevate them, but how do we bring in some other partners that in all of your communities, you're one of the largest, if not the largest employer. And so how are you supporting some of these other businesses that are non-traditional that we don't think of, but you're supporting them? When we take a look at, I know there was a study done in Flagstaff, and I think Scottsdale's done it recently. The return on investment in the local community is like 1.2 of any dollar that's spent in the public school system because it just generates itself back through the community. So when you get paid, you then go to the local restaurants, you go to the local grocery stores, you go to the docks, you go to the dentists. And so that money just keeps recirculating through your communities. And so how do we get some of those people to help us out too and make a connection with our communities through those kind of partnerships. And if you have I use Safeway because they're the one that comes to mind, but if you have Safeway and how many different communities now working with ARSA, there's a different connecting point that helps us grow what we're trying to do. So those are a couple things we're thinking of. I think I got to get to know the board a little bit better, and I know many of you on this call and in the organization, but I think we have to have some conversation and see what you guys want to do too, because I've tried in my career to I got ideas, and if you ask me, I'll tell them. But a lot of times in my career, it's been much better just to sit and listen and then adjust. When I came to Combs as an example, they had a program in place. So do I change 600 employees to do what I want to do? Or do I change myself to do what 600 people want to do? And it's a whole lot easier for one to change than 600. So I think the same conversation comes with ARSA is what do we want to do? And then how do we take that idea and move it forward? So need to do a little bit more listening before I throw too many ideas out.
Well, and we'll give you a chance to listen in just a moment as well. So that part is coming up. So my last question for you before I open it up to everybody else for a discussion of just ARSA this upcoming year is, what's something most people don't know about you that might surprise us?
Well, some of you know because you know me, but I'm an identical twin. So a lot of people don't realize that there's another person out there looking like me. That's kind of scary in and of itself. We don't look the same as much anymore, but if you get on the phone, you won't know which one of us is talking to you. And then the other piece that I kind of alluded to when I first started is my history is so we're hearing cutouts. Just saw the note. We're doing okay.
Yeah. Is it, Amy, is it just at the beginning of when Greg starts talking, or is my audio cutting out too?
No, it's just when or Dr. Wyman starts speaking in the very beginning. So I'm not sure if it's like maybe moving closer to the mic might help.
Yep.
So I think you were talking about a twin, an evil twin. I'm not sure if I heard evil. No.
Not an evil twin. But it's not quite the same as we don't look the same as we used to when we were young, but same voice. If he called you, you'd think I was calling you. But more importantly, growing up as a kid, I lived from the deserts of South America and Chile to the wilds of the British Columbia forests, and all of them have been in very small communities. I didn't live in a large community until I graduated my last 2 years in high school when I moved to Tucson. My dad was in mining, and so I moved into a lot of little small, what we consider rural towns. And so I think that's helped shape who I am and what I'm all about and in many cases, when I lived in these, especially if I'm in Chile or if I'm in Canada, I'm the minority because I'm not Chilean and I'm not Canadian. And so how do you get along with people? And in mining towns, you had people coming from all over the world that were coming together. So I think that's helped shape me in the ability to work with a lot of different people, is because you had to figure out how to get along with a lot of different people in isolated rural types of communities when you moved in. And you moved in, and I moved probably as a kid every 3 or 4 or 5 years. And so it was how do I get along with this? I'm from a large family, but you still had to figure out how to get along. So I think that shaped me, and it's probably some things that maybe some people didn't know.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time for our ARSA members to share ideas for Dr. Wyman as the executive director, some of your priorities. What are the needs and challenges that you see are facing rural schools? What should ARSA's top priorities be? Do you have any questions for Dr. Wyman, or are there ideas and topics for upcoming roundtables? So this is just a lot of open-ended discussion right now to where you can bring your ideas and hopefully help shape the goals and priorities for ARSA this year. So is there anyone? Yes,
I do.
Okay.
So, Dr. Wyman, again, having sat in that seat, near and dear to my heart, now that I'm in higher education, right? And again, representing GCU, but I would say the same for all universities because all the universities and community colleges, I believe, have programs, have events, have opportunities that could support rural schools. And so just something to be thinking about, kind of slash a question, is how can higher education institutions like GCU and all of the alphabets be most helpful, not overwhelming, but truly supportive to the rural superintendents and students. And so when I came in this position, one of my first promises and advocacy was to support rural schools. And there's that fine line because and again, I can only speak to GCU, right? But it's not a selling pitch. I know how many resources we have. I know how many things we can do complimentary. They're free. I have to believe that other institutes have that as well. So how can we get like an overlay of all the different resources? Because rural school leaders don't have the time to do this, and I know that. That demonstrate that support. Okay, if you're working with seventh and eighth grade students, here are complimentary things. If you're working with freshmen, you know, whatever it is, something as simple, but it's not simple, as re-imaging computers, right? We have students that could do that complimentary. Well, each year we have students that matriculate up to different grade levels, right? Those laptops, those iPads, whatever they are, they have to be re-imaged. We have turnover with staff. So just continue to think out of the box. And what I really have always respected about you, Dr. Wyman, and again, no surprise here, is that you want to learn to listen first. So I would just like to put out there that I know for a fact after 3 years now in this seat, there are a lot of complementary resources that are available to rural schools. How do we get them in their hands? So it's rhetorical right now, Greg, but just something for you to be thinking about. And that could possibly be a roundtable conversation in the future.
Yeah, and what I would say just real quickly would be, I think the key is at times it's overwhelming because there's so many resources. So what are we actually trying to do? And then trying to match the direction that's going, and it may vary from school to school or from region to region, but then trying to make that match up. And I think otherwise it becomes so overwhelming of, okay, I just speak for myself. The difference in the amount of emails I get relative to vendors post-COVID to pre-COVID is through the roof. And so how do we have that conversation would be the one thing. And oh, by the way, Cheryl, it's Greg. It's for all you guys, it's Greg. It's not, I mean, I meant to say that earlier, so don't worry about that piece.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has a question or a comment for Greg?
Hi, Greg. This is Reagan with APS Solutions for Business program. I may have missed it. I wasn't able to join right at the start of this meeting, but do you happen to know when the sponsorship opportunities will be released for next year in 2026?
Yeah, we'll be releasing in the next couple months. I have to get an understanding of the system that we have in place. I'm kind of learning it. We use a particular program. And so I have some meetings set up with a variety of different people to make sure we don't release until we're sure what's going on. But you'll see it probably early January.
Fantastic. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I was wondering if I could say a couple of things. We here at the Trust, we're almost certainly your insurance company. I work in the loss control department, and part of what we are trying to do is bring our education, kind of as I said at the beginning, out further into rural schools. What we've discovered is we have so many opportunities here in the Valley. We go to Tucson, we go up to Flagstaff to offer our classes and support. Our loss control consultants go everywhere, all over the state. What we found out is really only about 80 districts consistently come to our trainings. And what we believe is happening is, especially at rural schools, the same gentleman or woman, drives the bus that also cleans up and stuff like that, right? So they don't have time to take a day off and come down to the valley or wherever to get some training, even though we wish they could. What we have started is lunch and learns. And so the idea there is, yes, we can host them in person, but we also broadcast them out as a webinar live. So what we're hoping is that, folks that just simply can't take the day off or can't make it to wherever we're hosting can still be involved in what we want to bring forth as far as education. What I'm also hoping, and there's no answer that needs to be given right now, but what I'm also hoping is that we can help bring education also to your events. So things like, we have fire riser issues that are a problem here for us, but we believe since they're blowing, it's a problem in schools. For example, we have roofing seminars, preventative maintenance, things like that. So any ideas that you all have for us so we can then effectively bring our education out to you all would be fantastic. And also, as I said, being involved in anything with ARSA, any of your conferences, we can bring our curriculum there as well.
And I would say I think that's going to be critical. I do think there's a lot of turnover in leadership, so you have a lot of people coming into in new. But also, my belief is when they get, not if, but when they get the capital lawsuit settled, that you're going to see rural schools be the beneficiary of dollars that were not there before. If you've read the lawsuit, it's very clear how rural schools have suffered as a result of the underfunding. But I think at the same time, the danger always is if there's a boatload of money coming in, do people really understand? And then I think this is a partnership with businesses in general to start creating relationships to talk about what does it really mean if you have all this money and you're going to fix X, Y, and Z? Who do I go to fix it? What do we mean when we talk about it? If you're brand new, Kristen and I were talking beforehand, and if you're brand new and you're still learning the business end of it, do you understand procurement? Do you understand all that? So I think there is something that we need to do because for sure, if the dollars are not spent in the way that someone's expecting them to be spent, they will come back at us for our inability to do what we needed to do. And so we'll work on some of those types of partnerships because I think it becomes important.
Thank you. I think Shanna, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say that there's a small group of us that met last week talking about small school adjustment and changing those numbers and leading a case for trying to get those numbers increased a little bit. So I have not gotten notes back. So any of you that were on that call, I apologize. You know how it is. It's just been crazy 4 days, kids and teachers. Been principal lately. So I'm working on that this morning. Hopefully I'll get a recap out to you and let you know where we stand with that and our thoughts of what we want to do to tackle that issue.
And Shannon, I think that's a great way that, again, when we come together, there's some of the bigger districts have something different in rural than the real smalls, but that's where we support each other relative to what the needs are. However, what that looks like will probably change from topic to topic, but I do think that becomes critical because even within ourselves, we don't know. I mean, if you're down in the southern part of the state, you may not understand what you're dealing with weather in the northern part of the state. And so there's all these different differences that and how we work together becomes critical. So I appreciate your leadership in moving forward with that topic because I know it's a hot topic for a number of people in the organization.
Thank you.
I see a question. I see a couple of comments in the chat. So a question from Dr. Paul. Question to think about the future. What do you wish more urban and suburban leaders understand about rural education? And they can join forces to support the rural narrative.
I just think we were just having this conversation this morning about letter grades and I know Sean's been very active with the committees on letter grades and the math, but understanding if you have psychometricians from large school districts doing all this work, it's not the same when you get into a small district and you have one or two kids or one teacher quits on you, what the impact is. And so I think just getting them to understand the rural perspective. If you have not been in a rural setting, if your whole life has been in a large urban or suburban setting, then you don't have that understanding. And I think the more we communicate what's going on and what we're doing, the better they can come to the table. I know I've been talking with Paul Ty yesterday. He's doing some regional events. And so in some of those cases, I think he's got one coming up in the spring that they go out to Yuma. I said, well, why don't ARSA join you in that regional event? It's a low key event. It's not really, there's no agenda. It's just getting people together to meet and talk. And so how do we get ourselves to do that and have those conversations with some of the bigger districts so they know what you're facing? Everybody's got a story to tell and it's a good story. And just because you're the biggest doesn't mean your story is better or more important. It's just your story. I've been in some big districts, and some of the things I learned in little districts helped me more in the big district because they weren't doing that piece. And so you take a look at and you just assume. I made some assumptions going to a large district that things would be different. And I was surprised at some of the things I found that were issues. And so I think there's a way for us to teach them and coach them too by what we're doing. And so our ability to have that honest, open dialogue and share becomes critical, and they can learn from us and we can learn from them. At the end of the day, we all have student discipline. 10% of 20 kids is different than 10% of 20,000 kids, but it's still 10% and it's still the same discipline. And so what's something that you may do in your district that works because you're smaller, or what's something in a bigger district, and how do we share those ideas? So we have uniqueness, but it's the commonalities that we can build off of to help address the uniquenesses. And I think that's what we have to get together and have that conversation more and get that story told.
And I would like to say something that I have brought up about rural with legislators and in discussions with other rural leaders is that I do feel the underfunding of special education is much more significant in rural communities than it is in the cities. A lot of the rural communities don't have the economies of scale. I know in our district, like we have children in different age bands that safely can't be put in the same self-contained classroom. But we don't have the capacity to make a group of students who need exactly the same services that make it a cohesive classroom. And so there's a lot more vendor cost. There's a lot more struggle with just trying to make it affordable in rural areas. Yeah.
And I think the piece we have to remember is as we play the legislative game, it's a long game, it's not a short game. And so this year, the notion that there's a lot of things that are going to happen isn't going to work because there's no money right now. But do we start having that conversation about a rural school weight? Because we know there's more costs associated in rural school. We have a SPED weight, we have a poverty weight, do we have a rural weight? And how do we have that conversation? And when we have that conversation, again, we're not going to win that chance right out of the gate this year, more than likely. But if we start the conversation now, then you play the long game. I've been lucky enough to pass a couple bills that have changed the law, but it was a 3-year slog. It wasn't a 1-year slog. And it was a modification. And when someone beats it up and then gives it back to you, you change it. And I think we have to keep that in mind. But you're right. I just read something this week about ironically from the Charter School Association about special ed and who had the most special ed. And their numbers are skewed because of obviously some of those schools are just totally special ed. Well, then they made an offhanded comment about 2 or 3 small districts that they couldn't figure out why they had such high special ed percentages and costs. I'm thinking, well, because it's such a small district, you just put a few kids in there and you skew everything big time, but they have no concept of that. So I do think we have to share that piece. And I think that's where we have that conversation with all those legislators to really show them what's going on, because they don't necessarily truly understand.
And I see Renee put in the comments too, the same with the leveled EL. I know I've seen that where you're not supposed to put K through 2 with 3 through 5 or 6 through 8, but you might get one family who's in 3rd, 5th, and 7th who all came here together at the same time. It would be really beneficial to to reorganize to where it makes sense within the district rather than just the prescriptive outlines that are handed down to us. And Reagan, I did write down your comment, so I have that in my notes. Is there anyone else that has a question or comment before we close out for today? All right. Seeing no one unmuting themselves to add to the conversation, I will go ahead and end. I know time is precious for all of us. So I just want to say, Dr. Wyman, thank you so much for sharing your time and perspectives with us today. We're excited about your leadership with ARSA. And thank you to everyone else who joined the call today, who contributed ideas, and for the hard work that you do every day in support of all of our rural students across the state. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you all at the next roundtable.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.